and the camera around. Oh, okay. Okay, so here we finally are. My very first live stream. Last time we had some technical issues with internet connection, so that's luckily solved now. Yeah, first of all, what are we going to do today? We're gonna make some sketchbooks. Here I have, let's see, you see it on camera? Yeah, this is the final finished product. We're gonna make something like this. I have prepared some books in various stages of the entire production process. So I can show you every step without having to wait for glue to or paint to dry. Now, first of all, I must warn you, I am not a native English speaker, as you may have guessed. Let's see. Nope, no viewers yet. For me, this is quite a step out of my comfort zone, talking in front of a camera. So I apologize in advance if I sound like a babbling, bumbling band of baboons from time to time. So what is the first step? This is one of the blank sketchbooks I use. Let's see, what type of paper is this? Yeah, this is a Daler and Rowney A5 size sketchbook, 100 grams per square meter paper. First thing we are going to do is gilding the edges of the book. I have more or less developed my own method for that. This is of course not the traditional method for gilding book edges, which is a lot more involved and complicated. Nope. For gilding the edges, I am going to use this stuff here. This is gilding wax. It is intended for, let's see, where is my brush? Here it is. This is intended for gilding some stuff like picture frames or furniture. And with some effort, it also works for book edges. So this is what this stuff looks like. It's a thick wax-like substance. Now, usually I do about 3 books at a time. I clamp them together in a stack of 3 books, but now for simplicity's sake and to save a bit of time, we are going to do just one. So I take some mineral spirits here. I'm gonna moisten my brush so the wax softens a bit. And then we start brushing the wax onto the book edge. I will get some on the covers, but that's no problem since we are going to cover these with paper anyway. A little bit of mineral spirits and some of the wax, and then just brush it on. We're not gonna put it on too thick, because a thick layer will chip off a lot more, as you will see in the next stage. So it's better to do, we have to do several coats anyway. So I'm gonna put on several thin coats. Okay, this edge is done. I'm gonna move my clamps a bit. Like this. Then we're gonna do this side. Yeah, I don't know if you can actually see this on camera. I am just filming this with my phone set on a tripod. So it's just, where is my paper towel? Over here. So it's just a single camera. I can't really zoom in or anything. Now I hope to obtain a multi-camera setup at some point in the future. But for now it's just my phone. Then here the final edge. You know, when I first started experimenting with this, I used acrylic paint, but I soon found out that, well, that didn't work at all. For a simple reason, acrylic paint dries way too fast, and then you would just end up gluing the pages together. Yeah, I tried it on a book and I more or less ruined it. Okay, all sides are done now. What we're going to do now, release the clamps and then carefully open the book and like this flex the pages a bit. This is to prevent them from sticking together. You see a little bit of the wax will chip off now. I'm gonna clamp it in again and then go over it with my brush again. Now we will need to do, especially with gold, at least three coats. This stuff exists in quite a lot of colors. Well, silver and gold, but many different shades of silver or gold. This one is, let's see what it is, Florentine gold. So other shades of gold can be darker or lighter. With silver, you don't really notice if it's not done perfectly. With silver, 2 coats are usually enough, but with gold, at least 3 coats. Okay. So that is done. We're gonna flex the pages again a bit, like this. Okay, it seems to be, yeah, no full coverage yet, but that's okay. Now we're gonna let the wax cure for at least a day. And tomorrow I'm coming back for the next layer. So I'm gonna put this to the side. Let's see. I did have a book that was almost finished. Well, the gilding anyway. No, this wasn't it. Yeah, I have an entire stack of books here. Here it is. Yeah, this is one that was almost finished. Don't know if you can see this, but here are quite a few white spots that need to be covered up some more. Oh, right, before I forget, after the wax has cured, first thing you need to do, I'm gonna take a bit of felt. I always keep all these scraps for exactly this purpose. And then we're gonna buff the edges a bit. Now, in order to do this, the wax needs to be fully cured. I'm gonna buff it to shine. and then again paint it with the wax. And like I said, several thin coats are better than just putting it on too thick. And then the final side. Okay, all done now. And again, we're gonna flex the pages a bit. Then do another pass. This wax is a bit like oil paint in the sense that it takes a long time to dry, and this gives you plenty of time to smoothen everything out. Okay. And most important of all, you don't stick your pages together. Just like that. Okay, so that's it for this one as well. Clean my brush. So like I said, 2 or 3 layers, probably 3 if you're working with gold. Sometimes 4 if too much of the wax chips off. So we'll have to see when it has cured and we have cleaned everything up. There goes the lid. I have to pick it up. Yes, I am a bit clumsy from time to time. I drop stuff all the time for starters. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next step. It's a very important one. We're going to make the embossings on the covers. Here I have an example of finished cardboard embossings. These are made from 0.5mm thick cardboard. I use either, wait, I'm gonna put these clamps out of the way first. I use either empty cereal boxes for this or large sheets of cardboard I get at the art supply store. Now, when I first started making these books, I would always draw everything by hand with a pencil on the cardboard and then cut it out with a box cutter and glue everything together. Yeah, it was very, very time consuming. But then the next step was drawing it on a computer and printing it directly on the cardboard. Yeah, I got a new printer that could handle these sheets of cardboard, well, with a little bit of help. You had to push it, really push it through the manual paper feeder, and then it would take the sheet. But yeah, then I still would have to cut it out by hand. Took hours and hours for a single book. Now, recently, I don't know if you can see it. Yes, there it is. I got myself a laser cutter. Well, that's a million times easier, of course. I can just draw my design on the computer and then send it directly to the laser cutter, and it cuts all parts out in less than 20 minutes. So the design I have here consists of 3 layers of cardboard, like most of my books. Now, I'm not going to show you how I glue all of these together because, well, that would be quite long and boring. So instead, I'm going to show how I turn this into fake leather effects. So that's the step that comes after this, and for that I'm using this here. This is craft paper. You have to pay good attention because many types of craft paper have this line pattern on it, and no matter how often you paint it or whatever you do to it, this line pattern will always show through. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but this is just smooth brown without any lines. And to turn this this book into leather, we're going to crumple this up into a ball. Some gold flakes here. Let's clean this up. And then we're gonna flatten it again. Yeah, but like I said a few minutes ago, I'm quite clumsy from time to time, especially when it comes to dropping stuff and ripping. You may have seen on my Instagram profile that I describe myself as a real-life cartoon character. Why is that, you may wonder? Well, actually, it's my wife who came up with the idea. Because whenever I trip, I make these Professor Frink-like cartoon noises. A bit like, "Way!" Yeah. My wife always thinks I do it on purpose, but I swear I don't. So that's why she always says you're a real-life cartoon character. Okay, about 3 times. Let's see. Oh, one more thing we need to do. I always do this with all my books. I put a few cardboard rectangles on the spine to resemble the ribs on a book spine. Yes, I forgot it in this case, so quickly gonna do that. See if I have some cardboard here. Of course not. Just a second. Yeah, I am also very well aware of the fact that my workshop is a complete mess. So I do clean it up from time to time, yeah. And then everything is nice and organized for, let's say, a week. And for some reason, it always turns into a disaster zone again, yeah. So I'm just going to cut these cardboard pieces by hand. Like this, and then I'm going to take some bookbinding glue. And then I'm gonna glue these pieces on. Okay, there we have it. Okay, can you see it? Yeah, I think you can. And then we're gonna start gluing this paper on the cover. I always start on one side in the spine. I put glue all over the cover. And here you have to be careful that you don't use too much glue, especially if you brush against the edges like this, then you can get big blobs of glue on the edges, and if you put the paper on it, then these blobs will ruin the embossings. Okay. This is a glue that dries pretty fast, so I'm taking narrow strips at a time. What I'm doing here is to prevent the blobs of glue I mentioned earlier. This way you get a nice even coat of glue without any blobs or droplets. Okay. And now I'm gonna press the paper into the glue and all the edges. My fingers first. Take some more glue. I'm not putting any glue in the center here because that's part that's going to be cut out anyway for gluing on ornaments when everything is finished. I'm not going to show the book ornaments in this video. That is something for a future video. The glue I'm using here is specialized bookbinding glue. This stays flexible after it has dried. When I first started making these books, I think yeah, one of my first attempts, I made the mistake of using wood glue. I thought, well, it's basically the same stuff. Yeah, no, it isn't. Wood glue is a lot more rigid when it dries, and I could barely open the book. I almost had to break it open. Also, some types of wood glue contain ingredients that can make the paper turn yellow. Bookbinding glue doesn't have that. Okay, so that is one side almost done. I'm just using my fingers now to press the paper on. We're gonna push everything more into all the details after both sides are done. Okay, make sure everything is pushed firmly in place so we don't get any air bubbles or air pockets. Okay, then we're gonna flip it over. First do the spine. Now, if you see me looking that way, it's because my computer monitor is over there, so I can see if anyone is watching or if there are any chat messages. Yeah, got a few viewers already. Ooh, one person even liked my video. Thank you. Then again, push it in place. Make sure we don't get any air bubbles. And then continue our work on this side. So what I mentioned earlier also were cover ornaments. I'm going to show the finished book, which is of course apparent on the bottom of my stack right now. Yeah, this one. So cover ornaments, that's these thingies here. Not gonna discuss them in too much detail in this video. When I first started making these books, I made them from cardboard or clay, MDF. All of them were made by hand, which again took a ridiculous amount of work. Then the next step was making silicone molds and casting resin in it. I still use that method, but not as much as I used to. By the way, I still have a huge supply of resin castings. Enough to make, I think, at least 20 books. Yeah. Then the next step after that, then I got a 3D printer. But finishing a 3D print is also a lot of work, lots of sanding to get rid of the layer lines. So I printed a few masters, sanded them, finished them, then made silicone molds out of those. And now, about a year ago or so, I got a resin printer. Yeah, that's of course ideal. With a resin printer, you can print much more detailed objects without really any layer lines. I'm still working through my stash of resin castings, but probably once I'm done with those, I'm not gonna make any new. And from then on, all the cover ornaments will be 3D printed. But painting and applying those ornaments, that's a subject for an entirely different video. My painting techniques, that's plenty of stuff to fill an entire video with. So for now, we're just gonna focus on these leather covers. Okay, so that's it for this side. I'm gonna make sure first that I don't have any air bubbles. Okay, yes. Perfect. We're gonna flip it over again. Gonna take this tool here. This is a bone folder. And with this, I'm gonna push the paper into all the edges and creases so we get nice crisp edges. The glue has already set a bit on this side, so I can easily work these edges without or with less risk of tearing the paper. Still have to be careful though. Oh, look, looks like I got some chat messages. Okay, yeah, okay. I can barely read it. Hi, what's up? Okay, someone asks, please speak Turkish. Yeah, sorry, I don't speak Turkish. Oh, someone asks, how are you? Everything fine. To be honest, I'm a bit tired because I have been up since 4 a.m. Yeah, I worked an early shift today. So I've been quite awake for quite a few hours now. But don't worry, I've had plenty of coffee today, so yeah, should be able to stay awake. Okay, so this side almost done. Now this is a relatively simple design. I have made some, well, ridiculously complicated designs in the past, which I quickly regretted as I was finishing them. Now it's easy to get carried away as you're designing these things. You know, and put way too much detail in it. Looks cool though, but takes a very long time to make. So I'm just following the edges of the cardboard embossings with my bone folder to get nice crisp edges in the design. Now, as the glue dries, the paper will shrink a little bit and the edges will become even sharper. Let's see if we got everything up this circle here. Okay, so that's it. We have done all the embossings and edges. Now comes the next step, which is folding this paper around the cover. And for that I'm gonna need a piece of wax paper, which I need those pieces. I think I have some over here. No, I don't. Okay, so I'm gonna have to borrow some over here. Ah, yes, this one. And for this step, we're gonna put wax paper between the pages and the covers so no moisture from the glue will damage the paper. Now, before wrapping the paper around the cover, cut off the edges. And we're going to stay about half a centimeter from the corners here, so we can properly cover the corners. And make a cut here and here. Then some glue on the inside of the cover. And then we're gonna wrap the paper around. Now, it's no problem if this piece isn't glued down, because after it has dried, I'm gonna tear this off anyway. Then for the corners, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be visible on camera, because it's a tiny detail. I'm gonna use this pen here for that. I'm gonna put on the corner here, we have this little pocket of paper. I'm gonna put some glue on the inside. And I'm gonna use the back of this pen. I don't know if you can see it, but we're gonna fold this pocket like this. Also put some glue on the inside here. Yeah, sorry if you can't see it. I don't really know how to explain it, but this makes sure that the corner is fully covered, that it properly wraps around the corner without any of the cardboard sticking through. Yeah, one day if I get a multi-camera setup, I can zoom in on the details and give a much better overview of what I'm doing. Okay, now we're gonna fold these pieces over. And then the same on this side here. So again, that little pocket on the corner, turn it inside out. And then glue everything down. Yeah, another reason we use this wax paper is so we don't stick the cover, don't glue the cover to the pages. And then of course the same on the other side. A bit more. Okay, like that. Okay, so that's it for these parts. Then the only thing left are these bits of paper that have to be tucked into the spine. Just gonna tear these parts here a bit by hand. Okay, then I'm gonna open the book. So the spine here opens up a little bit. Again, put some glue on here. And then I'm going to use my knife for this. Tuck this little bit of paper into the spine. And then to prevent any loose bits from tearing, covering a lot with a bit of glue. Yeah, of course you can see it from that side. I'm gonna try to make it a bit more visible. Okay, so we are on this side. We're opening the book. So the spine opens up here a bit. I'm putting on some glue. And then tuck the paper into the spine. Yes, that's it. Okay. Now we're gonna let this all dry. We're gonna put on some clamps. So my clamps over here, so the book won't warp as it dries. And I see I need to work this a bit more. Okay, better. So some clamps to keep it on nice and flat while it dries, so we won't get any warping. So that's it for gluing. I'm not going to clean my brush out just yet. Just going to put it like this in a Ziploc bag so it doesn't dry out. Okay, so that's it for gluing on the paper. And the next step is painting. So this is where you turn the wrinkled paper into some sort of fake leather effect. Now I have several other books here, yeah, in various stages again. So this one I prepared yesterday with paper already in place. This is fully dried and we're gonna start painting it. Now I have several color schemes that I use, but my main color scheme is just brown, sort of brown fake leather effect. And we start this with a layer of black. So this is plain black acrylic paint. I have been experimenting with several different color combinations quite a lot. One that turned out really beautiful was this blue combination, but this required quite a lot of layers. I think it was 5 or 6 layers in total. Yeah, so it was quite a lot of work. And the most challenging one was convincing skin color. You can't just use flesh colored paint for that because that looks incredibly fake. No, that also was quite a lot of layers and lots of trial and error. But it looks good on horror themed books, you know. Now I'm using a dabbing motion with my brush here to prevent brush strokes. Because if we just start going back and forth like this, you'd end up with all these brush strokes, and that would more or less ruin the effect. Something I have also tried a few times was combining this fake leather effect with hand-drawn pictures. For example, the finished book I showed earlier. Yes, this one here. This is also drawing by me. Well, this is not the drawing itself. This is scanned and printed on this parchment type paper. But yeah, those are never really successful. I guess my drawing skills are a bit too crappy. Then also gonna cover the insides here. And at this point, you're inevitably going to get some paint on your fingers, but that's no big deal. Now we have to put something in between, between the pages and the cover, so we don't smudge our paint. I'm going to use these scissors here. Also a bit of paint on the spine. Okay, and now we're gonna let this one dry. I am going to put it over here with the rest of the books. And then the next step, this is when we're going to start making our leather effect. So here is a book that has already been painted black. Also one I finished yesterday. And now we're gonna apply the brown base coat. For that I am using a mixture of, here I have my two paints. Three parts burnt umber, and one part, let's see what this is, naphthol red. I have tried out several types of red. The results can be a bit unpredictable from time to time. I found out that either naphthol or pyrrole red combined with burnt umber gives a nice chocolate brown, while other types of red turn it into this sort of purple brown. Yeah, might work as well, but of course you get an entirely different color. So now I'm gonna mix up my color. That's an issue you always have with these big jars of paint. Okay, there it goes. Now I'm just eyeballing the ratio. This isn't an exact science. Like that. Now where are my storing sticks? Here we have one. We're gonna mix the paints. Yeah, so like I said, a really nice chocolate brown. Then to apply the paint, let's see, we're gonna use a sponge. I use these really cheap household sponges, cut them into squares. Because for this effect, you don't want a thick even coat of paint. You want the black to shine through a bit in some spots. This is what gives you some nice color variations to get a good leather effect. So I'm just dabbing it down with the sponge, especially near all the edges. You get a bit more black shining through, and that is what gives you the convincing leather effect eventually in the end. Again, some on the spine. And also the inside of the cover. And of course, again, be careful not to get any paint smudges. I'm gonna put this eraser here between pages. Okay, and again, let it dry. I'm gonna put this somewhere out of the way. Over here, for example. Let's see. Nope, this hasn't dried yet. Yeah, this is now the exact reason why I prepared all these books in various stages of the painting process, because, well, we're not gonna sit here waiting for paint to dry, are we? No, of course not. So this book here has already had a layer of brown paint yesterday. So we're gonna do the next step with this one. And this is what is really gonna turn this wrinkled paper into leather. For this we're gonna use some yellow ochre, and we only need a little bit of paint for this. Yeah, for this step you definitely want the brown base color to have fully dried, because otherwise you're just gonna smudge and mix the paint. Okay, yep, this sponge can still be used. And for this we're gonna take a tiny bit of paint on the corner of a sponge, just a little bit, and then carefully start applying it. Not too much pressure. Now, and still happens to me every time when you start doing this, your first reaction will be, oh crap, I ruined it. First impression will always be that it looks horrible. It isn't until you have done about half the cover that the effect really starts appearing. You want to put this on very thinly so all the layers underneath still shine through. You don't want to cover the brown underneath it. No, you just want to put in some more color variation and contrast. Funny, earlier I mentioned that certain types of red result in brown with some purple in it. Now that I'm putting on this color here, yeah, you probably can't see it on camera, but I notice, especially around the edges, some purple indeed with this color as well. So what shade of red did I say this was? Naphthol red. So then I guess, yeah, the other type I used was spiral red. That gives that's the one that gives you the best chocolate brown. This, yes, of course, also a nice color, but it's a little bit different. Slightly different effects. I'm gonna hold it up for a minute, so I hope you can see what I mean with the color variations and the contrasts. Now, and since you put this on so thinly, the paint dries more or less instantly. So with this step, you don't really have to worry about smudging, because yeah, really dried instantly. Which means we can also do the insides here without having to worry about anything. And now we can immediately move on to the spine and the other side. So this goes for all the color combinations that I have tried so far. You always want at some point apply a thin layer of a light color over the dark base color to get these kinds of contrasts in color variations. Especially with all the wrinkles and all the edges. This works really well in those spots. And also very important during this step, don't apply too much pressure. Because we only want a light thin coat of this lighter color. Okay, yeah, finish the inside of the cover. Okay, and with that, yep, it's more or less okay. I'm gonna do a few minor touch-ups here and there. Yep. Okay, so that's it for this step. And like I said, this dries almost instantly. But I am still gonna let this dry for a while before moving on to the next step with this. And instead, for the final step, I'm gonna use this book here. Yes. My take on the infamous Necronomicon, the original Facebook, as they call it. For the final step, this is what really finishes it. We are going to use some metallic paint. I'm going to use bronze paint here. I have tried several other colors as well on this color scheme. Copper works as well, but you get an entirely different effect. Even though it's just a small detail, it looks entirely different. I'm going to use a little bit of bronze paint and put a little bit on our brush. Put this out of the way. I'm going to put this in a baggie as well. And then we are going to put some paint on the brush, then wipe it off again, and then very lightly paint across the surface. You don't want too much paint on your brush. You don't want to cover this with metallic paint. No, we're just gonna highlight all the wrinkles and the edges. This technique is known as dry brushing. It is used a lot by, for example, scale modelers or miniature builders for creating all sorts of weathering and aging effects. Also used a lot in pro building, especially on the cover ornaments, which I will show in a future video. I use this technique extensively. Yeah, I don't know if it shows up on camera very well, but you get this nice metallic color on all the edges and ridges and wrinkles in the paper. And this really adds a lot of depth to the entire leather effect. Now this face on the cover here, this has been sculpted with epoxy sculpt. That's a two components polymer clay. You mix it and then you have about 3 hours of working time. Yeah, this of course was a very simple basic sculpt. The funny thing about the Necronomicon, it is usually pictured as a book with a face on it, even though H.P. Lovecraft, who invented the Necronomicon or who first came up with the idea, has never actually, well, as far as I know, I haven't read everything by Lovecraft, but as far as I know, he never ever described it as a book with a face on it. He just described it as an old, big, leather-bound book. But nowhere does he mention the screaming face on the cover. And where does the idea come from? Well, it's very easy, Evil Dead movies. But this is quite a popular design. Anytime I make books like this with a face on the cover, they sell in no time. By the way, if you're interested in buying one of my books, there is a link to my Etsy store in the video description. So check it out to see what I have available. Besides books, I also have some Dungeons and Dragons related props. I hope to make a whole lot more of those in the future. Yeah, I have plenty of ideas, but I'm always short on time to build stuff. Also, if you want me to make something, some custom design for you, books or other props, feel free to contact me. You can contact me through my Facebook page. So if you're interested in something, just send me a message and we'll see what I can do. Now also, since this paint goes on very thinly, it dries very fast. That's a little bit too much paint. Oh yeah, one thing I would like to hear some other people's opinions about. Earlier today, I was thinking when I was setting up my camera, my tripod. Now, since like I mentioned, I only have a single camera set up, just my phone. I couldn't zoom in on any details, of course. So it was a bit of a dilemma. Was I gonna zoom in on my work area so you just see my hands and the books a bit more up close, or like I set up the camera now so you can see my face and everything, but perhaps a bit less detail of the books. So what should I do for my next video as long as I don't have a multi-camera setup? Feel free to reply in the chat or in the comments what I should do next time. Okay, we're almost finished here. Now, like I said before, you're probably not going to see this on camera, but especially with all the wrinkles here, this picks up the paint really nicely and gives, you end up with quite a lot of depth, additional depth on the design. edges here a little bit. Okay. Also a little bit on the inside of the covers. Okay, so that's it for the final painting pass. A coat of bronze paint, dry brushed on. So I'm gonna turn it a bit. Maybe you can see the effect like this. Hold it a little bit closer. Yeah. And then there is one final step to really finish the effect, and that is clear coating. Now, very important. Even though the paint may feel dry to the touch now, it's far from dry. If you put spray on a layer of clear coat now, it would just dissolve the paint and ruin everything. So let it dry for at least a day before moving on to the next step. And for that, I'm gonna take out my spray varnish, if I can find it. Yep, here it is. So I'm going to use this, I believe it's called a Lazy Susan, these things, these rotating plateaus or platforms. I'm going to move this to the side. And what really gives it the finishing touch now is a layer of matte varnish. Now, I have tried out many different types and brands of varnish, and most types of matte varnish still had some sort of shine in it, where they were more of a satin finish. This, as far as I know, let's see, Winsor & Newton Professional Matte Varnish, that's the only one that really has the finish I wanted. I'm gonna take a sip first. Yeah, you get a really dry mouth from all the talking. Now the paint shop has a bit of a metallic shine with all the bronze paint on it, of course. And the next step is what is really gonna finish the effect. The book I showed you before, the finished book, this one, yeah, of course you're not gonna see it on camera, but I'm gonna hold them side by side. Maybe you can see the difference. This one has the matte varnish on it. But trust me, in real life, the difference is quite spectacular. this step, it's very important again that we use wax paper so we don't spray any varnish. Wrap it all around here so we don't accidentally spray any varnish on the pages, because otherwise you would again stick them together. Okay, like that, yes. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Where did the spray cap go? It popped off. Oh, just great. We're gonna just borrow one from another can for a minute. And now we're gonna spray it on. Just a light, a very light pass is enough. I'm gonna turn the can upside down so we clear the nozzle. Okay, and now we're gonna let this dry. Tomorrow we're gonna do the other side, and then this book is finished as far as the paint job goes. I'll put this out of the way for a minute. So that's it for as far as the paint job goes. Now then, of course, how I finish these books. I mentioned the ornaments earlier. So these are ornaments. I glue these on with super glue. These ones are resin castings painted metallic gray. What I also do is this here. These are leather straps wrapped around the spine, just decorative stuff. And then the inside of these covers, I finished this with a piece of felt. When I first started making these books, I just used some plain paper, but then you would really see the edges of the ripped paper here showing through. Didn't really look nice with felt. It looks a bit more professional finish. But since I don't have any felt at the moment, yeah, discovered earlier today that I was allowed. I can't show you that this time. So I'm gonna finish all these books that I have here right now. And next time we're gonna paint some of these ornaments and finish the books we made today. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time.